everyone. Welcome back to our 2015 monthly webinar series. Today we're continuing our January presentation entitled Practicing Gratitude to Produce Happiness. My name is Eric Steiner, and along with Aaron Griffin, we'll be your host for today's webinar. The presentation today will last approximately 45 to 50 minutes. At the end of that period, we will have time for a question and answer session. You can submit your questions for the Q&A session using either the chat window or the questions window in your webinar user control panel. If you're experiencing a technical issue or have a question not related to the presentation, you can reach out to Aaron or myself using the same chat or question windows. As always, we're behind the scenes making sure everything runs smoothly for you today. Now, before we start the presentation, let me give you some background on today's presenter. Delvina Miramati is the Director of Research and Program Development at Life Advantages LLC and the creator and author of Realize Your Resilience, which draws upon over 8 years of experience specializing in resilience education and program development. Dr. Miramati received her Master of Education from Harvard University in Human Development and Psychology, where she studied research at Harvard's Laboratory for Clinical and Developmental Research. She completed her doctorate at Simmons College, focusing her research on academic resilience in higher education. Currently, Dr. Miramati is directing and developing pioneering resilience programs for colleges and universities. Prior to this, Dr. Miramati worked at Children's Hospital of Boston's Department of Psychiatry, developing innovative prevention tools and curriculum for the Swinsward Depression Prevention Initiative. Her expertise and passion lie in the creation and implementation of health promotion and prevention programs that address daily living issues, including mental health, resilience, and various everyday wellness needs. Well, Dr. Miramati, I'll go ahead and turn the presentation over to you for today, and we can begin.
Thank you, Eric, and thanks, Aaron. As Eric mentioned, I've been working in the field of resilience for a few years now, and I'm always excited about the opportunity to share what resilience is all about and to help people find new ways to build their resilience and really live more fulfilling lives. So I'm excited about today's presentation on gratitude because we're going to really use this lens of resilience to examine the importance of gratitude and also better understand how it serves as a protective factor to approach life's challenges from a positive perspective and really help you live life each day in a more meaningful way. So today's presentation, just more specifically, we're going to start by introducing the concept of resilience and provide a better understanding for what it means to live a resilient life. Next, I'm going to talk about the emerging field of gratitude and discuss some of the most recent research supporting its significance and how it contributes to happiness. And then we'll end by using some of your personal experiences to really learn new ways to incorporate the practice of gratitude into your own daily routine. So we'll ask you to engage in some reflection and a couple activities to start that practice of gratitude in your own life. So resilience is a complex concept, and there are a lot of definitions out there, and it is a term that's thrown around quite frequently these days. So because of that, and for the sake of this presentation, I just want to clarify that our definition when we're talking about resilience is pulling from really the latest research and focusing on the most important aspects of what make it a unique and significant concept. So first, resilience is a dynamic process, so it includes internal and external protective factors as well as internal and external risk factors. So for example, an external protective factor would be something like community belonging, and an external risk factor would be something like a lack of healthy peer relationships, whereas internal protective factor may be problem-solving skills, and an internal risk factor would be something like low self-efficacy or a low self-esteem. Second, the research shows that resilience is ordinary, not extraordinary. So it's something that people commonly demonstrate. It's not a trait that people either have or don't have. It really involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned and developed in any individual. Third, fostering resilience means something different to each person. So we all have our individual strengths, our individual vulnerabilities, and therefore each of what we call our capacity for resilience needs to be kind of nurtured and developed in different ways. And what that capacity for resilience looks like is different in each person. So this is the element of resilience which leads me to want you to participate and engage in today's presentation. It's why when we're talking later about gratitude, you're going to do a little reflection, really think about what fits best in your life, and how you can bring this practice specifically to the experiences that you have. Last, I think it's important to note that a person's culture can have an impact on their resilience. So, cultural differences do cause variations in things like communication and interactions. So maybe how you express love or conflict resolution. And so because of this, it creates differences in what resilience may look like from person to person. So as we go through the presentation, just keep that in mind. Feel free to make adaptations as you feel necessary. And hopefully we'll offer enough options when we're talking about tools for practicing gratitude that you feel like there's something that makes sense for your cultural needs. So talking about specifically the definition of resilience, resilience is an important concept to consider when we're talking about happiness because not only does it buffer the negative effects of stress, but more importantly, it really promotes positive adaptation to stress. So it leaves you in a more balanced, healthier place. Resilience requires that we focus on and build those qualities and mechanisms which protect us and help us deal with stress in a more effective way. So when these protective factors are at play, when we're experiencing that adverse event, they help buffer the event and lead to a more positive outcome. So that is why our definition of resilience here is that resilience is the dynamic interaction between perceived risk and a range of protective coping skills that provide an individual with the ability to adapt well in the face of adversity and thrive in everyday life. So resilience kind of has two end goals. Not only does it help you cope better with that event that you're experiencing, but it's really going to provide the skills that you need to thrive every day despite what's happening in your life. So thinking about that definition, I wanted to touch on a little bit what that actually looks like in an individual, in a real-life person. What does a resilient person look like? And it's a combination of factors. Some are internal and some are external, which I mentioned before. And this slide is presenting some of those external factors associated with resilience. So, many studies have shown that a critical component to living a resilient life is having supportive relationships, both family and friends. In addition, a strong sense of belonging to your community, a connection to your community, or being active in either civic or faith-based or local groups can all provide additional social support that's going to help bolster your overall resilience. This slide presents internal factors associated with resilience. So resilient people make their own health and well-being a priority. They think positively about the future and view failure as an opportunity to learn and grow. They're thankful and engage in expressions of gratefulness. So they practice gratitude, which is something we're going to talk about today. They have the capacity to problem solve through realistic thinking and action. They're able to maintain perspective when they're under pressure and consider the stressful event in a broader context. And they keep a positive view of themselves by having confidence in their strengths and abilities. So they really believe in themselves or have a good self-efficacy. So as I mentioned, resilient individuals are grateful. But it can also be said in a different way, is that in order to become resilient, one must practice gratefulness. So this practice of gratefulness is going to contribute to you living a more resilient and a happier life. So what is gratitude exactly, and why is it an important factor in living a happier, more resilient life? As you see here, gratitude is defined as an extremely powerful quality of being thankful that can change your life for the better. Gratitude can help make sense of your past. It can help bring peace to your life. It can bring order and acceptance. And it can really help shape your worldview and your perspective to bring in more positive elements. Dr. Robert Emmons is the world's leading scientific expert on gratitude. He's a professor of psychology at UC Davis and a founding editor-in-chief of the Journal of Positive Psychology. A lot of the work and research that I'm going to talk about today comes from his work, him and his colleagues. He's published a variety of books on gratitude, and is very well known in this field. So he defines resilience as having two components, and so I'm going to read what he wrote in an article as his definition of resilience. So the first component. So first, it's an affirmation of goodness. We affirm that there are good things in the world, gifts and benefits we've received. This doesn't mean that life is perfect. It doesn't ignore complaints, burdens, and hassles. But when we look at life as a whole, gratitude encourages us to identify some amount of goodness in our life. The second part of gratitude is figuring out where that goodness comes from. So we recognize the sources of this goodness as being outside of ourselves. It didn't stem from anything we did necessarily ourselves in which we might take pride. We can appreciate the positive traits in ourselves, but I think true gratitude involves a humble dependence on others. So we acknowledge that other people, or even higher powers if you're of the spiritual mindset, gave us many gifts, big and small, and help us achieve the goodness in our lives. Now, in addition to his work, there is a variety of research out there as well, and according to the literature in positive psychology, gratitude is the most powerful of all positive emotions. It helps create a solid foundation for experiencing more happiness, and it helps foster optimism, hope, and joy. So gratitude helps really shift your worldview to focus on what you have instead of what you lack. And it can really impact your relationships by bringing more positive and supportive energy and emotions to others. So the research about practicing gratitude really has shown that it can benefit you in many ways: your mental health, your physical health, happiness, your ability to cope. And I have here on this slide some specific results from a variety of studies. So for example, gratitude boosts feelings of optimism, joy, pleasure, enthusiasm, and other positive emotions. It fosters healthier coping. You can recover faster from a traumatic event. It reduces anxiety and depression. It improves your relationships with others. It increases satisfaction with your present life. It strengthens your immune system, lowers your blood pressure, reduces symptoms of illness and fatigue, and it helps improve your sleep. So you can see the benefits are quite significant, and something that I'm sure would be interesting to everybody when they hear that is, you know, if it can do this much, how does that work? So looking specifically at this study, which I found interesting, and it really does show the significant impact even minimal gratitude practice can have. So this was a study done with two groups. The first group did a one-time act of thoughtful gratitude, and the second group participated in a week-long act of gratitude. So the first group, with that one-time act, had a 10% increase in happiness for 6 months, and they also had a 35% reduction in depressive symptoms for 3 months. And that was that follow-up. So even that one-time act had a pretty big difference and impact on that group. The second group, for 1 week, wrote down 3 things that went well in their life and what caused that to go well. They did that every night for a week, and these results showed that 2% were happier than before, and that was immediately at follow-up, 2%. However, what's interesting is they did a follow-up 1 month later and 6 months later. And what happened was their happiness continued to increase despite the fact that they were no longer engaging in gratitude practice. So there's 5% 1 month and a 9% increase in happiness 6 months later. So I think overall what's important or interesting about this data is that, first of all, it takes minimal time and effort to really have an impact on your happiness when we're using gratitude as the tool. And more importantly, I think it's reassuring when we talk about it, is that it's not we're not asking you to change everything in your life. It's not a practice that requires you to make big changes. It really is just moments and minutes here and there, and something that's very doable, I think, for all of us. So, given all of that, I still want to provide some additional incentive as to why we should gratitude and what practicing gratitude can do for you, by highlighting how an individual who lives a life of gratitude may look and feel on a daily basis. And notice as we go through these, how many of these characteristics would be things that would be used to describe maybe a happy person that you know. Grateful individuals have a sense of abundance, so they do not feel deprived in their life. Grateful individuals are appreciative of the contribution of others to their well-being. So the research suggests that grateful individuals still take the appropriate credit for their success. However, they're also, quick to acknowledge how others have contributed to their well-being. Grateful individuals are characterized by the tendency to appreciate small pleasures. So, these are the small pleasures in life that are readily available to most people, like a bed or a roof over your head. Appreciating these small pleasures means that you're, going to experience the benefits that we're talking about of gratefulness throughout the day, multiple times a day, and therefore can be happier overall. And then last is the acknowledge the importance of experiencing and expressing gratitude. So this last one is important and one that's been studied quite a bit. We're actually going to talk a little bit about it. In that, taking the time to think about what you're grateful for is helpful, and the research does show it can boost your overall happiness. But what's most effective is the actual action of expressing that gratitude. So for example, saying thank you to someone and sharing specifically why you're thankful to them, rather than just being thankful that someone is part of your life. The studies are really continually finding that expressing thanks can lead to healthier, happier, and less stressed lifestyles. So how does it work, right? So how does this practice of gratitude actually make you happier? Psychologists break down gratitude into 3 phases. So there's the appreciation phase, the goodwill phase, and the expression phase. For example, if someone gives you a ticket to see your favorite sports team or band, initially you'll probably react with appreciation, and that appreciation would, provide this sense of goodwill towards them, which you would then finally want to express somehow to them, some kind of thank you. And oftentimes we live our lives in the first two steps. And we may say thank you, but we never express our thanks in a way that's going to have an impact. So what I mean by that is we say a quick thanks, but never maybe doing something a little extra, like writing a thank you note, or sending a picture of you at the event with a note, and really connect it to the experience and how much, maybe a story about that experience, and really express how that has brought you happiness is going to change your overall happiness. So again, how it all works, I find this additional explanation to be helpful. So this is according to Dr. Robert Emmons, referring to him again, that gratitude is an attitude, not a feeling that can be easily willed. So regardless of whether or not you're currently happy in your situation, expressing gratitude is, as he says, like improving your posture, and as a result becoming more energetic and more self-confident. So expressing gratitude, right, then makes you more grateful, which then makes you happier. So he suggests that attitude change often follows behavior change. So by living the gratitude that we don't necessarily feel, we begin to feel the gratitude that we live. So if you think about your little acts of gratitude as attitude boosters, they're going to help trigger an emotional response that's going to lead you to then be a happier you. How will gratitude change your life? Here's a few for starters. Gratitude allows us to celebrate the present. So gratitude magnifies positive emotions, right? According to, a lot of the research out there, positive emotions are great, but they wear off really quickly. So if you think about your initial excitement towards new experiences or life circumstances, like a new car or a new relationship or a new home, the way you felt in the beginning isn't really the way you feel now. But what gratitude does is it reminds us of that initial emotion by helping us appreciate the value of something and not take it for granted. So it gives us an additional lens through which we can focus on the positives and therefore get more pleasure out of those experiences each day. Gratitude blocks toxic negative emotions. So negative emotions are incredible. They have, the power to take over our lives and really impede any chance we have at happiness. We know a lot about negative emotions and the role they play in depressive symptoms and how they can really make anxiety more debilitating. However, gratefulness, thankfully, has been found to really help buffer against those negative emotions. For example, if you practice gratitude regularly, you're less likely to experience negative emotions because you can't feel the positive emotion and the negative emotion at the same time. For example, envious and grateful about the same thing at the same time. Even more important to that point of depression, according to a recent study on gratitude, evidence supports that gratitude can reduce the frequency and duration of episodes of depression. Grateful people are more stress resistant. There's a number of studies showing that when facing significant life challenges or trauma, grateful people are able to cope and, more importantly, able to recover more quickly from that stressful event. And grateful people have a higher sense of self-worth. As I mentioned earlier, grateful people acknowledge that the contribution of others brings a lot of positivity and well-being to their lives. So they notice how the relationships that they have contributed to their well-being, and that allows them to look more positively at themselves. So I'm going to pause for a moment and let us engage in a little questionnaire. So what I'm going to do, this is the gratitude questionnaire. The source is at the bottom if you're interested. As we will do this today, but if at any time you feel like you fell behind or you didn't understand something, you can feel free to send in a chat and ask Erin a question, and she can try to help you as I'm talking, or feel free to, we'll also make this presentation available, and so these instructions will be available to you and you can go through again and do it in your own time. So take out a piece of scrap paper and number it 1 through 6. There's going to be 6 questions in this questionnaire, and the scoring on how to answer each question is on the screen. So if you strongly disagree, you're going to put a 1. If you are neutral, you'll put a 4. If you strongly agree, you're going to put a number 7. And so each of these questions that are numbered 1 through 6 on your scrap piece of paper are going to have a corresponding score of 1 through 7. I'll read each question twice to make sure you hear them correctly, and try to leave enough time for you to answer. So question number 1, I have so much in my life to be thankful for. Again, I have so much in my life to be thankful for. Question number 2, if I had to list everything that I felt grateful for, it would be a very long list. Again, if I had to list everything that I felt grateful for, it would be a very long list. Question number 3, when I look at the world, I don't see much to be grateful for. When I look at the world, I don't see much to be grateful for. Question number 4, I am grateful to a wide variety of people. Again, I am grateful to a wide variety of people. Question number 5, as I get older, I find myself more able to appreciate the people, events, and situations that have been part of my life history. Again, as I get older, I find myself more able to appreciate the people, events, and situations that have been part of my life history. I'm going to read that one more time because it's long. This is question number 5. As I get older, I find myself more able to appreciate the people, events, and situations that have been part of my life history. And question number 6, long amounts of time can go by before I feel grateful to something or someone. Again, long amounts of time can go by before I feel grateful to something or someone. Okay, so you should have 6 questions each with a score for 1 through 7. And now this is how we're going to score them. So look at question number 1, 2, 4, and 5. Ignore 3 and 6 right now, and add up those scores. So you'll have a total. That's step 1. So as part of step 2, we're going to reverse the scores for items 3 and 6. So if you have trouble with that, on the screen is what your score should equal. So for example, if on question number 3 you wrote down a score of 5, it's going to change, just cross out the 5 and put a 3. Or if you wrote a 2, it's going to be a 6. So change your scores, reverse your scores for items 3 and 6. And then add that total to step number 1 total. You didn't know I was going to make you do math today. And so what this should give you is your total gratitude score, and this number will fall between 6 and 42. The higher the score, so the closer your score is to 42, represents a person with higher gratitude. So you want the highest score, the closest you can get to 42. And again, this will be available to you in the archive, so you will be able to go back and do this again if you'd like. So now that we know the importance of gratitude, we spent a little time on kind of making sense of what gratitude is and the research out there that highlights the importance of it. You also now are aware of your own current state of gratitude. We're going to shift into talking about some ways in which you can practice gratitude to really improve your happiness in your everyday life. So there are multiple ways to practice the strategy of gratitude. And what's most important as we go through these is to keep in mind that doing what works best for you and what is meaningful to you is what's going to be the most effective. So finding a strategy that works for you, but also understanding that it may change over time. So perhaps something works for you for a while and then seems to become kind of meaningless. Feel free to either pick a different kind of practice, or maybe just play around with the frequency in which you're practicing, or where, or how often, and when. So it's kind of up to you as to what makes sense. A gratitude journal, so keeping a gratitude journal, is one of the most basic and common and powerful practices in all of positive psychology. If you are looking at any books published on happiness in the last decade, you're definitely going to find some mention of an exercise similar to keeping a gratitude journal. So what this entails is you choose a time of day when you have several minutes to kind of step outside of yourself and to reflect. And so this could be a time when you wake up in the morning. It could be before you go to bed at night, while you're commuting to work. Maybe you're on a train and you have some time there, or even something like, you know, in the bathroom. We all have iPhones now, and there's some great features on there for note-taking and just jotting things down. And so you want this to be something where you have a few minutes to write down 3 or 5, or 3 to 5 things for which you're currently grateful for. So these could be something really mundane, one day could be, I will use the example that I'm grateful that my husband did the dishes before I woke up this morning, so I didn't have to wake up to a mess. Or the first hot sip of coffee I had this morning was just a noticeable moment for me. It could be also something really significant. So I could say, the birth of my firstborn son, really recalling that experience and that moment in my life. I could also say that having a job where I'm passionate about the work that I do every day. I feel really grateful that that is the kind of job I get to have. So, being specific about maybe individuals or the experience is always helpful, but writing it down is part of this journaling experience. And so, studies suggest on average that you should do it at least once a week, and doing it once a week is going to boost your happiness. However, the more often you do it, the bigger impact it's going to have. So in a 10-week study comparing participants who kept a daily log of things they felt grateful for and those who didn't, members of the group who demonstrated, who did keep the gratitude journal, demonstrated a 25% lift in happiness. Again, in follow-up studies, researchers, and this is a lot of Emmons' work and his colleagues, have found that people who regularly record sources of gratitude exercised more per week and also achieved their goals, reported that they felt that they've achieved their goals. So another powerful practice is writing a gratitude letter. So your task is to think about someone influential in your life, someone who changed your life for the better. This could be someone maybe you feel like you never properly thanked. It should be someone still living because you want it to be someone that you can either see face-to-face or call on the phone. For example, your mother, a favorite uncle or aunt, an old friend, a coach. And what you're going to do is write a letter of gratitude to this individual and then deliver it to them. So the letter should be really specific and concrete. You want to talk about what this person did for you, how it affected your life. You want to let them know what you're doing now, and perhaps mention how often you remember what they did or how what they did has impacted what you're doing today. Once you've written this letter, you're going to either call the person or go and see them in person, and you're going to read it out loud. Don't just give it to them. And it is this act of expressing gratitude that's going to have a really long-lasting impact on your happiness. So Dr. Martin Seligman, who's the founding father of positive psychology, him and his colleagues tested the well-being benefits of expressing gratitude in this way. And their findings suggest that those who wrote a letter and delivered it in person and read it out loud to that person were much happier and much less depressed directly after, and that these boosts were maintained 1 week after the visit and even 1 month after that. So 1 month follow-up, just that one act had at least a month's worth of impact on their happiness and their risk for depression. So here are some other suggestions to help you incorporate gratitude practice into your life. Remember, as I mentioned, really the most important thing is finding an expression that works best for you, and something that's going to fit into your life so you can find something that sticks. So there's create a gratitude playlist and listen to it once a day. That's nice if maybe you commute to work and maybe keeping a journal isn't something you're going to be able to commit to, but if you always listen to music, it just takes one time of making the effort to create the playlist that maybe recalls some memories or people in your life that you're grateful for. Music that brings you peace and keeps you present and mindful. Whatever a gratitude playlist would mean to you, you can just listen to that. And I think it'll be a nice trigger for you if you're feeling grateful. Make plans with a friend to, text one gratitude statement to each other each day. So having somebody else engaged in your gratitude practice is always a nice way to keep you accountable, and also it's nice to, hear what other people are grateful for. Agree to engage in random acts of kindness at least twice a week. This could be holding the door, or some kind of pay it forward where you pay $1 towards the next person on the toll, or whatever that may be. Share 3 things that you're grateful for that day before dinner every night. This is actually something my husband and I do at night during dinner. So we put our son to bed and we sit down at the dinner table and we start by saying 3 things that we were grateful for that day. We alternate. We do one at a time, and it's nice. It's a nice way to start to reconnect at the end of a long day, and also kind of become present again with how we feel. And it's not something we do necessarily every night, because some nights, we just order pizza and watch TV, and that's totally fine. But having this practice when we sit at the dinner table is a nice reminder, and it's something we can remember to practice, and it's just part of our routine. And for any of you who have families, it's also nice to find a practice that can be incorporated into, your family's lives. So for us, the dinner table will, once the kids are a little older, they're very young right now, the dinner table will be a place, hopefully, where we can continue that practice and the kids can participate and have, the experience, the many benefits that I've talked about that will come from this gratitude. And, compliment someone at least once a day. Think of positive thoughts and view difficulties as learning experiences. Give something to something you believe in. It could be time, labor, money, intellect, and, say thank you at least 10 times a day. So you can see some of these compared to a gratitude journal are really small and require not much time. I would encourage you to pick a few and try them out, and hopefully end up with a couple that work really well for your life. So in addition to kind of these specific ways of targeting gratitude practice, the research also has shown that gratitude or thankfulness can be increased as a function of interventions designed for other purposes. So for example, meditation can promote gratitude through its foster of quality, the quality of mindfulness. Progressive muscle relaxation can help produce increased feelings of love and thankfulness, and visualization and relaxation has been shown to increase feelings of gratitude through, for example, something like a forgiveness exercise. So this presumably by making one grateful for being given the gift of forgiveness. So just to touch on some of those more specifically, in case any of you are unfamiliar with some of those alternative exercises, deep breathing. So most people, when they are not concentrating on their breathing, tend to take quick, shallow breaths. So this kind of breathing can really make your heart beat faster. It can make you feel more anxious. And specifically when you're under stress, you're going to take short breaths as part of the stress response. So when you take deep breaths and you take them from your abdomen instead of the shallow breaths from your chest, you're able to slow your heart rate down, and that helps you feel more relaxed. So if you want to give this a try, my suggestion would be to find a comfortable place to sit, to close your eyes, put one hand on your abdomen, and concentrate on taking deep breaths. You can feel your abdomen going in and out, and really focus on your breath and try to let everything else in your mind go. And this kind of exercise is going to require you to practice a bit. It's not always easy, and I'd suggest practicing in times when you're not stressed. So find times during your day where you can take a few moments when you're feeling calm and really start to master that practice so that you feel your body go into this relaxation and deep breathing. If you're able to do that when you're calm, then when you're feeling stressed, you can institute that exercise, and you will be able to take your heart rate from, kind of a rapid stress state and slow it down. But it takes a little bit of practice first, so give it a try. Another type of practice that can help promote gratefulness and really therefore increase your happiness is to picture or visualize yourself in a place that feels relaxing and peaceful to you. So this could be a beach. It could also be your favorite room in your house or a very comfortable place. It could be the bedroom you grew up in when you were a child. It could be a place you've dreamed and never been. All you really need to know is that you have this image, and what you want to do is be as descriptive about it as possible. So to start, in order to get kind of good at this, what's helpful is to write down a script for the scene using all of your senses. So actually write down the sights, the sounds, the smells, the taste, the temperature. So describe in using kind of that first-person experience. So I'm standing on a balcony, the ocean waves below, it's warm, it smells like, the salt from the sea, and be really descriptive. And then choose a word or a phrase to kind of attach to that image and try to memorize what you've described. Read it to yourself over and over again. And this is something you can practice and then try practicing without writing it down. Try recalling kind of that image and bring yourself to that place. Again, really good to practice this when you're already relaxed in a safe place so that once you get good at it, you're able to recall that using that word, this image, this place of relaxation, and therefore help your body relax when you're experiencing stress or maybe in a stressful situation. With mindfulness, there's a body of research over the last 20 years that has shown mindfulness is helpful in reducing stress, it's helpful in increasing happiness, and it's been a really important component of a lot of the positive psychology research. You can imagine, being mindful, meaning being present in the moment, can really contribute greatly to your gratitude practice on a daily basis. So simply put, being mindful is being aware and present in the moment. So it's about forgetting the past and the future and making a conscious effort to pay attention in a non-judgmental way to what you're doing presently so that you don't rush towards fixing things or make any rash decisions. It's about allowing things to just kind of be as they are and to see them more clearly and be in that current experience. So getting started. So now that you've kind of hopefully picked a practice or thought about a few that seemed interesting to you that you're going to give a try, there's a few things I wanted to touch on that will hopefully help make your practice successful and sustainable, because that is the most important piece of all of this, is that it's something that you can actually do and continue to do. So the first one is commit. So, try to commit to at least 5 times a week, and give yourself a break if there's a day here and there when you aren't able to forget. Or sorry, if there's a day here and here when you do forget, it's totally fine. And the 5 days, again, if 2 seems like manageable and doable, you're still going to see a really significant impact on your happiness based on what the literature and all the research shows. So if that is what's going to be something that you can sustain, then I'd suggest not worrying about, I have to do it 5 times a day, and just pick a number that seems feasible to you, or an amount of time that you're going to be practicing. Portable and I would say possible, so something you can do regardless of your environment and where you are, and it should be something small enough that can kind of always fit into your life. Maybe not every day, again, as I mentioned, but something you can fit in. Write it down. So that, we talked about the power of gratefulness coming from basically the amount of effort and meaningfulness you put towards it. So make that extra effort to write it down, and you're going to have a more significant impact. Again, this isn't always possible, and it might not, some of your practice that you choose might not include writing it down, but that's always a helpful effort. Feel it. Some days you will feel the emotion of gratitude while you practice. Other times it may feel like just empty words. You are saying your gratitude, you're saying you're grateful for such and such, however, the actual emotion tied to that just doesn't seem to be there. That's okay, it happens, and we encourage that you still engage in the practice, still write it down. We talked a little bit about Emmons' theory and how gratitude works, and so based on that, the simple expression is going to help change your emotion. So just by writing it down, even if in that moment you're grateful, you just don't feel like that emotional attachment to what you're saying, it'll follow based on your actions. Share the gratitude. So partner with someone and share what you're grateful for on a regular basis. This is helpful in, reaffirming your own words, just saying them out loud. And also, it's nice to hear what others are grateful for. I know when my husband and I share, he shares things sometimes that I think, I hadn't thought of that today, but I am really grateful for that. And so it kind of expands things that you may have overlooked and helps you feel more grateful for more things that day. And don't stop once you start. Obviously, keep it up is an important piece. In the research I talked about earlier, the effects did last beyond the day that you practice, weeks and months, but eventually, the impact does wear off. So if you continue to practice, you'll continue to see results. And so with that, I wanted to just end with this gratitude video. However, streaming over webinar is really tricky and doesn't always work for everybody. So we're going to make this available both as part of the presentation that's archived, as well as as a resource, so you can watch this TED Talk and access it as when you have time. But I suggest checking it out. It's a really nice way to tap into your feelings of gratitude and feel appreciative. So at this point, I believe we are done with the presentation, but we're going to take a couple moments for questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Delvina. This has been a very enlightening presentation today, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time to speak with us about this very important topic. One thing to just reiterate, we will be making that link available to you, the TED Talk link that was available on the previous slide, so that you can access that on your own or share it with someone else you feel might benefit from the information contained in that presentation. But right now we do have a little bit of time for a question and answer session. So if there's something you would like to ask, please let us know. You can submit that through your chat or questions panel. But we do have one right now that's very important. And Delvina, I'll turn this one to you. Do you have some resources to learn more about resilience?
Absolutely. You know, it's a emerging field. However, it's been around for about 30 years. But what resilience has become in the last, I'd say, 10 years is quite different than how it started. And so I think there are a variety of books and research articles that would be really helpful for everybody if they're trying to better understand resilience, but more importantly, understand how they can use resilience and foster resilience in their own life. So yes, I am happy to share those resources, and we can put those with that GoToWebinar so you're able to access those as well in the archive.
Great, Delvina. Here's one more for you. You talked about being grateful for your life just as it is, but if you're really unhappy, shouldn't you be working to change things?
So I think that is a really interesting question, and I think it gets at kind of the core of what being grateful is. And I think in really bad situations, if you're able to have, it doesn't mean you don't want things to be different. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying to improve your life. But I think it doesn't, you know, I think if your situation is really bad, in order to get through it, trying to hold on to what is good in that really hard situation is going to help you try to, you know, get out of it and make things better. And what gratitude is going to allow you to do is find those little nuggets of good things that are going to help you be a little bit happier within yourself so that you can take a positive approach to trying to make things better in your life and trying to make those difficult situations better. So.
Great, Delvina. I think we have time for just one more question today, and I think we'll close with this one. I work in a very fast-paced and competitive environment. I try to practice gratitude every day at work, but often feel defeated and alone in doing so. Do you have any tips to bring gratitude into the office?
Yeah, so I think that probably is something that happens in a variety of work settings. You know, people get very focused on the job, on the task, and can lose sight of, you know, in the moment, the fact that you're working with real life people, and you know, every moment things are being done and said, and there's real life emotions involved. I'd suggest probably starting with your own gratitude practice, but bringing in someone else from your workplace. So maybe one of the suggestions in my list was finding a partner to practice gratitude. So maybe you text each other, email each other during the day, and you know, make sure that every day you're going to share, you know, 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for, and you can keep it, if it's helpful, focused on the work environment to help you start to take a more positive perspective yourself, and try not to get weighed down by all of the negative that may be happening around you, and then from there hopefully lead by example. If you're seeing things in a more positive light and able to be more grateful, then maybe bring in another person to that practice, or if there's an appropriate meeting setting, to start bringing a little bit of gratitude practice into your meeting, whether it's just having a quote on the board every time you meet, or part of a presentation that you do starting or ending with some kind of quote that brings gratitude, or actually asking people to share something that they're grateful for. But I would suggest starting with yourself and then working your way out into the organization.
Well, great, Delvina. That took us right up to the limit for our presentation time today. Is there anything else you would like to close on before we finalize the presentation?
No, I'll just offer this quick be thankful poem and hope that everyone got out of today's presentation at least a tool or something that they can start using in their own life to feel more grateful and therefore live a little happier.
Well, great. Thank you very much for the presentation today, Delvina. We appreciate the time and effort you put into teaching us a little bit more about how to be gracious and practice gratitude in our daily lives. And we thank you, our attendees, for joining us today. And I'd like to remind you, we do have another presentation in February that you can sign up for and continue joining us in our 2015 webinar series. Thank you again, and please enjoy the rest of your day.